Hi, I'm Pranamya, and you're watching Pages of the Globe. So if you're new to my channel, basically I read stories, I tell you a little bit about the author who wrote them, and then I give you an analysis about them. I go pretty deep in, I give you a lot of historical context, and I promise you can trust me to be able to give you some deep insight on these stories. Without further ado, let's get on with the introduction. Alright, so the story that I'm going to be reading to you today is called Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. Now I'm sure many of you have probably heard of Ernest Hemingway. He was a very influential American author known for his distinctive writing style and adventurous life. Now, just some key facts about him, the rundown basically. He was born in 1899 in Illinois, and he was the second of 6 children. Now, he did have a journalism career. After high school, he worked as a reporter for the Kansas City Star, where he honed his kind of concise writing style, influenced by the newspaper style guide. Now, he did serve as an ambulance driver for the Italian Red Cross during World War I, and he was seriously wounded and spent time recovering in a Milan hospital. Now, these experiences actually inspired his novel, A Farewell to Arms. He also, in the 1920s, he moved to Paris, where he became part of the expatriate community of writers known as the Lost Generation. He was friends with very, very notable figures like F. Scott Fitzgerald and Gertrude Stein and Ezra Pound. Now, as for his writing style, he was known for his economical and understated writing style, often referred to as, quote-unquote, the iceberg theory or the theory of omission, where the deeper meaning is implied rather than explicitly stated. Now, you will also see this in the story that we read today. He won't exactly say exactly what's going on, but you can kind of guess what is sort of the more dangerous operation in this case happening. Now, some of his most famous works that you may have read include The Sun Also Rises, published in 1926, A Farewell to Arms, published in 1929, For Whom the Bell Tolls, published in 1940, and The Old Man in the Sea, published in 1952. That actually won him a Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1953. In 1954, he was actually awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for his mastery of the art of narrative and his influence on contemporary style. Now, he did die by suicide, unfortunately, in 1961 in Idaho, but his work continues to be widely read and studied, and he is considered one of the greatest American writers of the 20th century. His influence extends beyond literature to modern culture and lifestyle. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about his story, Hills Like White Elephants. Hills Like White Elephants is a short story by Ernest Hemingway, which was first published in 1927 in the collection Men Without Women. The story is set in a train station in Spain and revolves around a conversation between a man and a woman who are waiting for a train to Madrid. This story is so interesting. I love this story so much. However, I will say if you are sensitive to topics like abortion, I would not recommend it. Without further ado, let's get on with the story. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like me to read next. Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. The hills across the valley of the Ebro were long and white. On this side there was no shade and no trees, and the station was between 2 lines of rails in the sun. Close against the side of the station there was the warm shadow of the building, and a curtain made of strings and bamboo beads hung across the open door into the bar to keep out flies. The American and the girl with him sat at a table in the shade outside of the building. It was very hot, and the express from Barcelona would come in 40 minutes. It stopped at this junction for 2 minutes and went to Madrid. "Where should we drink?" the girl asked. She had taken off her hat and put it on the table. "It's pretty hot," said the man. "Let's drink beers." "Dos cervezas," the man said into the curtains. "Big ones?" asked a woman from the doorway. "Yes, 2 big ones." The woman brought out 2 glasses of beers and 2 felt pads. She put the felt pads and the beer glass on the table and looked at the man and the girl. The girl was looking off at the line of hills. They were white in the sun, and the country was brown and dry. They look like white elephants, she said. I've never seen one, the man drank his beer. No, you wouldn't have. I might have, the man said. Just because you say I wouldn't have doesn't prove anything. The girl looked at the bead curtain. They've painted something on it, she said. What does it say? Ernest del Toro. It's a drink. Should we try it? The man called. Listen through the curtain. The woman came out of the bar. 4 reales. We want 2 anís del toro. With water? Do you want it with water? I don't know, the girl said. Is it good with water? It's all right. You want them with water? Asked the woman. Yes, with water. It tastes like licorice, the girl said, and put the glass down. That's the way with everything. Yes, the girl said, everything tastes of licorice, especially all the things you waited so long for, like absinthe. Oh, cut it out. You started it, the girl said. I was being amused. I was having a fine time. Well, let's try and have a fine time. All right, I was trying. I said the mountains look like white elephants. Wasn't that bright? That was bright. I wanted to try this new drink. That's all we do, isn't it? Look at things and try new drinks? I guess so. The girl looked across the hills. They are lovely hills, she said. They don't really look like white elephants. I just meant the coloring of their skin through the trees. Should we have another drink? All right. The warm wind blew the bead curtain against the table. The beer is nice and cool. It's lovely, the girl said. It's really an awfully simple operation, Jig, the man said. It's not really an operation at all. The girl looked at the ground the table legs rested on. I know you wouldn't mind a Jig. It's not really anything. It's just to let the air in. The girl did not say anything. I'll go with you, and I'll stay with you all the time. They just let the air in, and that's perfectly natural. Then what will we do afterwards? We'll be fine afterwards, just like we were before. What makes you think so? That's the only thing that bothers us. It's the only thing that's made us unhappy. The girl looked at the bead curtain, put her hand out, and took hold of 2 of the strings of beads. And you think then we'll be all right and be happy? I know we will. You don't have to be afraid. I know lots of people who have done it. So have I, said the girl. And afterward they were all so happy. Well, the man said, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I wouldn't have you do it if you didn't want to, but I do know that it's perfectly simple. And you really want to? I think it's the best thing to do, but I don't want you to do it if you don't really want to. And if I do, you'll be happy, and the things will be like they were, and you'll love me. I love you now. You know I love you. I know. But if I do it, then will it be nice again if I say things like white elephants and you'll like it? I'll love it. I love it now, but I just can't think about it. You know how I get when I worry. If you do it, you won't ever worry. I won't worry about that because it's perfectly simple. Then I'll do it because I don't care about me. What do you mean? Well, I care about you. Oh yes, but I don't care about me. And I'll do it and then everything will be fine. I don't want you to do it if you feel that way. The girl stood up and walked to the end of the station. Across the other side were fields of grains and trees along the banks of the Ebro. Far away beyond the river were mountains. The shadow of a cloud moved across the field of grain where she saw the river through the trees. And we could have all of this, she said, and we could have everything, and every day we make it more impossible. What did you say? I said we could have everything. No, we can't. We can have the whole world. No, we can't. We can go everywhere. No, we can't. It isn't ours anymore. It's ours. No, it isn't. And once they take it away, you never get it back. But they haven't taken it away. We'll wait and see. Come on back in the shade, he said. You mustn't feel that way. I don't feel anyway, the girl said. I just know things. I don't want you to do anything that you don't want to do, nor that isn't good for me, she said. I know. Could we have another beer? All right, but you've got to realize. I realize, the girl said. Can we maybe stop talking? They sat down at the table, and the girl looked across at the hills on the dry side of the valley, and the man looked at her and at the table. You've got to realize, he said, that I don't want you to do it if you don't want to. I'm perfectly willing to go through with it if it means anything to you. Doesn't it mean anything to you? We could get along." "Of course it does, but I don't want anybody but you. I don't want anybody else. And I know it's perfectly simple." "Yes, you know it's perfectly simple. It's all right for you to say that, but I do know it. Would you do something for me now?" "I'll do anything for you." "Would you please, 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 please stop talking?" He did not say anything, but looked at the bags against the wall of the station. They were labels on them from all the hotels where they had spent nights. "But I don't want you to," he said. "I don't care anything about it." "I'll scream," the girl said. The woman came out through the curtains with 2 glasses of beer and put them down on the damp felt pads. "The train comes in 5 minutes," she said. "What did she say?" asked the girl. "That the train is coming in 5 minutes. The girl smiled brightly at the woman to thank her. "I'd better take the bags over to the other side of the station," the man said. She smiled at him. "All right, then come back and we'll finish the beer." He picked up the 2 heavy bags and carried them around the station to the other tracks. He looked up at the tracks but could not see the train. Coming back, he walked through the bar room, where people waiting for the train were drinking. He drank an Ernest at the bar and looked at the people. They were all waiting reasonably for the train. He went out through the bead curtain. She was sitting at the table and smiled at him. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "I feel fine," she said. "There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine." The end. Alright, so that was Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. Now before I jump straight into the analysis, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the summary and just kind of fill in some details that you guys may not understand. So Hills Like White Elephants opens with a long description about the setting, which is in a train station surrounded by hills, fields, and trees. And it's like a nice picturesque place. A man simply known as the American and his girlfriend sit at a table outside the station, waiting for a train in Madrid. And it's so hot, so they're drinking beers, and the girl remarks that the nearby hills look like white elephants, to which the American responds that he's never seen one. They order more drinks, and then they start to bicker about the taste of alcohol, and they're just not having a good time. So the guy, he's like, "Okay, we just need to try and enjoy ourselves." And the girl replies that she's merely having fun, and then she says, again, the earlier comment, she takes it back and she's like, "Oh, well, they don't actually look like white elephants." They order more drinks, and at this point, we learn that the girl's name, he at least calls the girl Jig, and we learn that she's having an operation. And although it's never specified what kind of operation, we see that he's very agitated. He's trying to downplay the operation's seriousness. And he argues that it would be very simple. And then he says, "Oh, it's not even an operation, actually." And she doesn't say anything for a while, and then she's like, "Okay, well, what would happen to us after the operation?" And he says, "Oh, well, it's just going to fix all of our problems." And they both agree that everyone's been happy after, this operation has happened. And he starts to then, continuously keep talking about how much he cares for the girl. And he says that she shouldn't have the operation if she doesn't really care about what would happen to herself. And at this point, the girl is she's trying to wonder, what would happen after the operation. And they're starting to argue for a while, and the girl, she's tired, she's frustrated, she makes him promise to not say anything. And the Spanish bartender comes out, and he's like, "Okay," or she's like, "The train is coming." And at this point, we see that the girl also doesn't know how to speak Spanish. Only the American does. So after finishing the drinks, the American takes their bags to the platform and walks back to the bar. And he asks the girl if she feels better. And she says she feels fine and there's nothing wrong with her. And that's the end. So it can be hard to kind of understand exactly what's going on. So it's important to first, let's go into a deeper study and look at the background. First, when we look at the American and we just try and do a character study on him, we see that he's kind of this rugged man. He's knowledgeable, he's worldly, he's always in control of himself and the situation at hand. And we also see that Even when he's like frustrated or confused, he very much maintains his cool and feigns indifference. Like when he tells the girl that, oh, I don't really care honestly if you have the operation or not. And he avoids discussing their issues, but when pressured, he tackles them head on by oversimplifying the operation and relentlessly pushing her to have it. He seems like the more reasonable of the two. I mean, at least he thinks he's the more reasonable of the two, and he patronizes this girl and fails to provide the sympathy and understanding she needs during this crisis. And when you see him like talk about the other passengers as waiting reasonably, we see that he thinks his girlfriend is just like freaking out for no reason. And towards the end of the story, we kind of can see that they'll probably end up going their separate ways, or they'll be very unhappy because he doesn't seem to understand her. Now with the girl, this girl is she's much less assertive and persuasive compared to the guy. She often appears helpless, confused, and indecisive, and she keeps changing her mind about the attractiveness about the surrounding hills, for example, claiming to selflessly care only for the American and seems uncertain whether she wants to have the operation. She can't even order drinks from the bartender on her own without having to rely on the guy to speak Spanish. Ironically, the girl seems to understand that her relationship with the American has effectively ended, something that he seems to be in denial about or can't understand. She knows that even if she has this operation, their relationship won't return to how it used to be. In many ways, the girl's realization of this fact gives her power over the American, who never really understands why they still can't have, quote-unquote, the whole world like they once did. Now, as for the operation itself, I do not know what it could be, but as soon as I started reading the story, I automatically kind of assumed, and you guys might agree with me on this, but I automatically kind of assumed it was abortion because it is highly, highly stigmatized and controversial in America, and numerous young people go to places like Mexico and Canada to have abortions. Now, at the same time, we see that this man, he'll say anything to convince his girlfriend to have this operation. And he tells her that he loves her, for example, and that everything between them will go back to the way it used to be. And she's kind of like waffling indecisively, but at one point she's like, okay, fine, I'll have it, just to shut him up. And she's just like, shut up. She does not want to talk about this anymore. And we see that they honestly aren't a very communicative couple. They do not seem like a good couple. So it's, to be fair, like, it's probably a good idea that they're not going to have a kid together because they genuinely can't talk together. They talk about how other couples were so much happier after they got the abortion. And this girl, she's like kind of very like dispassionately agreeing with him, and it shows that she knows that at the end of the day, very few couples will be able to move through this together, and she knows that their relationship is gone. They can't even communicate properly. Now, as for some symbolism, because I do want to talk about some symbols. First of all, white elephant. A white elephant symbolizes something no one wants. In this story, it's the girl's unborn child. The girl's comment in the beginning of the story that the surrounding hills look like white elephants kind of just seems to be like a casual, offhand remark. But it actually serves as a segue for her and the American to discuss their baby and the possibility of having an abortion. The girl later retracts this comment with the observation that the hills don't really look like white elephants, which is a subtle hint that she maybe wants to keep this baby after all, which is a hint that the American misses. She even says that the hills only seem to look like white elephants at first glance, and they're actually quite lovely. Comparing the hills and metaphorically the baby to elephants also recalls the expression that we often hear, which is the elephant is in the room, which is a euphemism for something that's painfully obvious and no one wants to discuss. In this case, the unborn child. And I think that's so smart, and I think Hemingway really did he pulled some cool literary moves with this. Because she does, in a way, or in a sense, she does want to keep this baby, but she understands that her relationship with this man is over, basically. They're not going to last much longer. And she knows that she can't have this baby on herself. So while she's kind of having this conversation with the American, in my mind, it's like, as she's talking to him, with him, he's just trying to think, in his mind, he's probably thinking, oh, well, she wants to have a kid with me because, she loves me, but I'm not ready for that. But in reality, this girl, it's very obvious that she knows that her relationship with this man is over. She's thinking more about the baby that she wants. And she, at one point, has came to the conclusion or understanding that maybe it's going to be hard for her to have this baby by herself. And that's why she decides to have the abortion or the operation after all. And again, nowhere is it specified that this is an abortion, but at least for me, I didn't even look on a single website, and I literally immediately was like, yeah, that's definitely an abortion that we're talking about here. But yeah, please feel free to just tell me your own analysis about this. Tell me your own themes and symbols that you may have found. But that's it for today. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like me to read next.